I think that when we leave space within the system for these kind of policies to make people have a nice well-being, I mean, to have space, time, and resources for living well, you make the whole system work better.
Care has always been at the center of our lives. We feel it in the early mornings before anyone else is awake, in the invisible labor that keeps families, communities, and workplaces running, in the quiet exhaustion of giving so much and rarely seeing it counted. So, why has care never been at the center of our economy? Welcome back to the Well Woman Show, where we support you to lead with ease, live with joy, and create meaningful impact on your own terms. I'm your host, Giovanna Rossi. Today, I'm speaking with Lucía Cirmi Obón, a feminist economist, activist, and Argentina's first national director of care policies. She's been at the forefront of reimagining how economies can better support the realities of everyday life, like leading national care initiatives, advancing policies for domestic workers, and shaping global conversations on how we fund care. On the show, we talk about why care work is one of the most powerful and undervalued forces in our global economy, what feminist economics looks like in everyday life, what Argentina's model of community care can teach the rest of the world, and why the future of work depends on finally taking care seriously. Lucia has spent her career making the invisible visible, and in this conversation, she offers us something powerful, a way to connect what we live every day to the bigger systems shaping our world. Let's dive in. I'm speaking with Lucía Cirmi Obón. Bienvenidos. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And we do have a lot of Spanish speaking listeners. And so if you want to throw in a Spanish word here or there, I know you're from Argentina. And so I appreciate you speaking with us in English, but feel free to say some things in Spanish as well if you feel like it. So, Lucia, welcome to the show. I wanted to start with asking you not about your job title and your bio, but really about who are you in the world today?
Oh, I'm a tiny person comparing to what's happening, but I would say I'm someone who's always interested in inequalities and the way public policy can change or not those inequalities.
Mm. And I know you're an economist and you identify as a feminist economist. And I think that's fairly unique. There's probably a pretty small number of you in um, in your country, in this country, in the world. What makes you a feminist economist, and how did you get there in your career?
Well, when I was at the university, I couldn't find in the regular classrooms the answers to the sources of inequality, I would say. And also, I had this feeling all the time, like the economy we were studying, it didn't have a face or it wasn't connected with what really people need from the economy. And when I met all the authors of the feminist economy, then I felt okay. This is why I came to study economy, because they look first for the well-being of the people and how the the production, the capitalism, or the system can work for that, and not the other way around. I feel most of the time, even nowadays, um, the thing works the other way around, right? Like we have to adjust our life to make production work well, and it should be the other way around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good point, and I think it's a great way to start off our conversation because um, the well-being of people, of women, of children, of families, really can't be an afterthought to the systems that we're working in, right? But they are because they weren't created by us or for us. So, how do you then go into a system that's already created without centering women and families and like work within that system to create the shifts that you need to see.
I think that when we leave space within the system for these kind of policies to make people have a nice well-being, I mean, to have space, time, and resources for living well, you make the whole system work better. I think when the system is disconnected with these needs, it start working wrong, and that's why we're watching nowadays, right? Like the way financiation of economy ends in a way that many people, most of the people, have plenty of jobs, has informality, doesn't have any social protection. And when you go to the needs of inside the house, because that's what feminist economists do, right? Like that's they look at the things that are working, the things that women are doing inside the house, the care work or the law of care work, and they say, okay, here they should be public policy, right? And because they were not public policy regarding these issues in the last, I would say, century or even more, the system and the economists, most of the economists, they just thought, okay, this is a female knowledge, and they make it, they are doing it because they love their children. That way of thinking led to this situation nowadays when we are having falling fertility rates and we have a space for taking care of other people. So when you give space to public policy regarding care work, and I think, well, in Canada you have very interesting issues, very interesting policies regarding that. Once you do that, you create more jobs, the jobs that will work in the future. But you also distribute better the wealth because most of the people working in this sector actually belongs to the lower classes.
Mm, yeah. And so so I know you're working on public policy and also funding policy, right? Funding mechanisms. And so what specifically are you doing in Argentina that maybe we're not looking at here? Well, we're definitely not probably looking at here in the US, but in other parts of the world as well.
Well, I was in charge of the care policies in Argentina for the between 19 and 24. And now with the current government is not interested in gender issues in general, and either in care policies in particular. There's a big structural adjustment going on. So many of the care policies we developed in the last years, they are not going forward anymore. But I think what is particular from Latin America and Argentina is we have really strong, we call it communal care. We have this figure, especially in the more popular neighborhoods. This, how we say, a third place. This place where we feed many of the children who don't have all the food they need, and where you create this community. Then most of the time, this modern living just leave it out, right? You have just your job and your house and your cell phone, and you're alone. And I think what we have here to maybe export to other parts of the world is this sense of community. No one really feels alone.
Oh, well, and so to do that, you need policy support and funding support. And so what is the biggest challenge right now for you? And I know well, let me ask you this. You're going to be a keynote speaker at the Work and Family Researchers Network conference in Canada in June, and we'll link to that in the show notes so folks can check it out and even get your tickets to attend. It's an incredible international space where researchers are brought in from all over the world to provide their most up to date research and findings on work and family issues. And so, what are you going to be talking about? If you can give us a little taste of what you're going to be presenting.
So probably really speaking about this, about where's the money to finance these policies we need. because happens to me that when I was in public session doing these policies, it was really hard for us. I was in gender ministry, and for us, it was really hard to get the resources to go forward with these policies. When I end up my job here, I work with other governments here, around Latin America, and I found that happens everything the same. Gender areas doesn't have any budget to do these things, and mostly it's because they go in a different road, but the things they are proposing to the society applies to social policy, applies to labor policy, applies to macroeconomic policy. So we need to mix it, and I think this conference is going to make it in this way to mix those perspectives, because I feel most of the time that we are a bunch of women saying these feminist ideas about care on one side, and on the other side, very male spaces. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Very masculine spaces, thinking in the future of show, of thinking in how to solve the economy without looking at this perspective. And I think we don't have to be, how you say, ingenua. Um, we have to be critical enough to understand that we are asking the system to internalize a cost that so far it was only on our shoulders, right? Now we are saying, okay, we had to collectively pay for this, and this is not going to be just an easy thing to happen. I mean, we had to use all the ideas around and all the collective strength to make it happen. Otherwise, our agenda won't move, because uh, us, the women are taught to not get into economic issues still nowadays. And I think going this agenda, going with this agenda very far away, we need for that to feel much more empowered with this discussion. Many peers that work on social policy or in inequality issues, they have great ideas, but at the end of the road, they find someone who says, there's no money for that. And they just have to say, okay, and I want to encourage them to make them feel empowered enough to have arguments argument or argumentos is in Spanish, to have all the ideas they need to discuss where's the fiscal space to do the thing and why they're gonna make it good for the rest of the economy. I don't know if I'm
Yeah, yeah, no, I do, I get that, and so, it's really important to, be able to carry the ideas and the policies forward into the more mainstream, uh, dominant culture spaces where that's not necessarily being talked about, and there's a lot of challenges with implementation in those spaces. And so is it our job as women and professionals working in this space, is it our job to convince that dominant culture, masculine, male dominated space to listen to us, or do we have to be strategic and show how it actually makes better business sense when you do implement these policies?
I would say probably both. I mean, actually both, because time is not enough, and I think the job that the International Feminist Economy Association is doing is great also in that sense, and we have worked very far. If you look a few years ago, these ideas about care, they were not in the main area, and now they are there. But of course, they need a welfare state behind. And if the welfare state it's on judge and the people are discussing that, well, it's quite hard. But I think the interesting thing about the care policies and the feminist perspective is that they go very deep into discussions within the house. It's really difficult to not feel touched about who took care of you, or who will take care in the future. So even people who are not really into politics or into public policy discussions, they are interested in who's gonna take care of them when they get old, right?
Yeah. And so on that note, actually, I want to ask you, what are a few things that we could share with listeners to help them with their own feminist analysis of mainstream economic debates that they might hear about on the news or in newspapers? They might see kind of very mainstream economic debates. And how can we use a feminist analysis at at the community level? Like, what questions should we be asking when we hear economic debates?
Well, something that is really global and in these days, I will say, is the new fashion on trad wives. They are on social networks, and they show how to be a traditional housewife is a good thing and it's amazing. And I would say that from a feminist point of view, we say it is. Actually, we want that you can choose that. We did a lot of options. You have free kindergarten. You have a really generous parental leave, egalitarian. The father also have the same leave. Uh, we want you to choose, and the one you choose to stay caring if you want, that you have social protection, and that you don't feel dangerous in any moment, and that we also want that the education of your children uh, wouldn't depend on how much do you know to raise your children. Actually, nowadays I'm a mother, and many of the things I look for raising my children are on Instagram, and that shows that actually I don't know how to take care because I'm a woman. I'm looking for social knowledge, and that's the idea we're running to. We're running to the idea that families don't know how to do. As society, we solve that. If we want to not also live better, but also uh, have jobs in the future, because these are the source of jobs that won't disappear. They estimate there is 31 million positions in the future regarding these, or I would say billions in English, okay? Billions in the future regarding this section, and we had to take advantage of that. I would say.
Okay, such a good conversation. And if you want to hear more from Lucía Cirmi Obón, you can join her at the Work and Family Researchers Network conference in Canada in June. We'll put the link in the show notes. And she'll be joined by a lot of other scholars and policymakers. And the Well Woman Show is a proud sponsor of the conference. And I've been to the conference several times and been a speaker. And it's just a really great space for this conversation to move forward. That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, follow us on Instagram at Well Woman Life. And don't forget, you can catch the show on NPR anytime. Just head to npr.org/podcasts and search for The Well Woman Show. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave us a quick review. It really helps others find the show. I always love hearing from you, so drop a comment or message me on socials at Well Woman Life. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.